right. All right, everybody click, got it. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nada Gilman, and she's going to update us on a project that she's working on for the Climate Smart Communities Group.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I'll just give a quick overview of what we've been doing. Primarily, our main goal right now is to figure out who the EMC wants to work with and open up lines of communication and kind of build that network within the county and eventually beyond. So to start with that, what we did was take multiple lists provided by Adam and Chris and Susie and multiple other people and trying to make a somewhat master list. And within there, we're kind of categorizing the groups into 3 different categories. So there's those that we think that we really want to work very closely with, like to the point that we think that there should be a representative on the EMC. And then there's the group that we want to work closely with, but not to the point that they need to have a member on the EMC. And then there's the group that we want to make sure that we know what they're doing and that they know that they can come to us, that we're kind of calling an outreach group. I can show if you want to see the giant spreadsheet. But right now, I think we have about 150 organizations on there that we're trying to figure out how to best categorize them so that we can communicate with them efficiently and kind of have the groups to know what type of communication we want to have with them. Once we have that established, which I think we're pretty much almost there, like I noticed that everything is color organized right now, and I think everybody has their category. So we're pretty much there with that list. We are going to send, my mouse stopped. Of course it did. I was going to share, oh, there it is. I will share the survey that we put together. And I think that is also almost done. Hang on, for some reason there it is. This is the list if you want to see it real fast. Like you can see that we have the organizations we want to have on the EMC, groups we're calling partners, and then our outreach group. But the survey, if you want to, let me know if you can see that. And thank you to Susie primarily for helping me get started with this, and to Diane for drafting the introduction. We're going to send this out to all of the groups on our list that we have contact information for, to get an idea of, establish who they are really, who they see themselves as, the type of organization they are. And then we really want to know what their priority areas are. This is the part that Susie really helped with. And then once we have an understanding of that, that might dictate how we organize them. Like maybe their priorities really do line more with being a partner than an outreach organization. And then finally, we're asking them if they know any other groups or organizations that we haven't thought of. Just want to make sure that we are not missing anybody and that we build a robust network that we can rely on throughout the years. So that's a very quick overview. I don't know if people want to read the introduction that we have right now for the draft of the survey. We're finalizing that, and we hope to get this out relatively quickly soon as well. So I'll stop sharing and see if there's any questions or comments or concerns about anything that the group has done so far. Chris, go ahead. Yeah, you probably have lots to add.
Yeah, I can't remember how much we shared with everybody entering into this process, that we were originally talking about a summit.
Mm-hmm.
And that we have backed away from that, feeling that we wanted to build a network first and build out from there. So it's still a long range hope that we can pull something like that off, but we kind of lowered our sights a little bit short term.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. And that also brings up the point that we might not have the summit immediately, but we do want to make sure that we get these lines of communication open, and we're going to have smaller discussions with these organizations before we have the large summit. So Allison, did you have a?
Yeah, hi. I just had a quick question. What kinds of organizations are you looking to partner with? Are they just local, like nonprofits, or do you also include student clubs or student-run organizations on campuses in the area or schools in the area? Just was wondering.
Yes, that's a good question. So yes, we are including student clubs. We have a few from a couple high schools on the list and some from both BCC and from Binghamton University that I think most of them were categorizing as outreach groups. So making sure that we have lines of communication, but maybe not very active in the EMC. And then government groups, like we have a Assemblywoman. I know that was just added, not just added, but she was on there. Transportation, basically any government organization or government group that might be tied to sustainability in some way, and then other nonprofit organizations. And depending on their level. Yes, sorry, Adam, I just saw your chat loop you into the conversation, or there might be something else. Yeah, any organization, and we're focusing on Broome County right now, but we definitely want to expand to outside the county as well.
And does everyone know what Climate Smart Communities is? Just because this is a group and I don't know if we explained what that quite is or why it's relevant to the EMC. Is anyone wondering about that? Okay, so the climate, I'm gonna put my doggo down. So the EMC acts as the task force for our Climate Smart Communities certification. So New York State has a program called Climate Smart Communities. And it's at the county level, just because in this area we couldn't do all of the different municipalities. It made more sense to do it countywide. But within that, Broome County is bronze certified, which means we did a bunch of different things to gather points. It's on a point system. The more things you do, the more things you submit, the more points you get. And you can go from silver, bronze, silver to gold. I don't think anyone's hit gold, but Ithaca is silver on their way to gold. So we'll get there at some point. But the EMC acts as the task force for Climate Smart Communities. And that's why we have a subgroup. That's why we're doing these things, to basically work on some things and then submit them and get us more points. So yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Nada, or Nada, anything else that you want to add? Thank you, Jillian, for helping with that too.
No, I guess the only other thing I'll add is if you want to make sure that there's an organization on the list, put it in the chat or send me an email or send Diane an email and we'll make sure that it's there.
Yeah, great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nada. And I'll add just a couple things. Allison, just for your edification and for everybody else, we do have student members on the EMC too. So if you or anybody you know is interested in becoming a member of the EMC, we have multiple opportunities and positions on the board for them. So the other thing I just wanted to say is that I think this work that Nada and Adam and Chris and the whole team are doing really builds on the work that we did last year too. 2020, I think we weren't the only organization that it was a hard year in 2020. We were all getting used to meeting on Zoom, and that was a challenge just in itself. And since then, I think most organizations have become pretty adept at operating in the new world. And so last year in 2021, we really focused on ourselves, on the work we were doing, on organizing the work we were doing, and really just trying to dig in a couple areas. And zero waste and climate smart communities were two of the four things that we focused on. Getting the photo show from a year previous kind of finalized and done, and then also our riverbank cleanup. So last year we really focused on the work, brought in a couple new members. This year we're very focused, and we're getting a tremendous amount of support from Jillian and Beth in planning around recruiting new members. And so we've got a lot of new members here, and welcome to all of you. We're thrilled to have you. And we're continued to be focused on that. And we want to be intentional. And NADA is providing us an opportunity to be intentional in recruiting people and thinking about who do they represent, what's the work they do, and how can that help us serve the county. So with that, I think I'm now turning it over to Jillian so that she can talk a little bit about what's going on in planning and I think a little bit about membership too. So over to you, Jillian.
Thank you. Do you want to throw up the slides again? Just so we can see the roster. No worries. Okay. Do you want to go to the roster one for me? Awesome. So this is basically just a representation of our membership that we have going on. We did have an awesome amount of new members, and I'm so glad that you guys are here because I'm new myself. And I think just a new group of people who are excited to learn and do environment. Okay, sorry. New dog, we adopted her last Friday, so she might be barking a little bit. She likes attention a lot. So we have a bunch of new members. We have 10 out of 15 members at large who are able to vote. We have Adam, who is one co-chair, but also our CAC representative. We have our amazing student representatives, special representatives, ex officio members. So that's people like myself and Josh, and Liz over at Parks, and Leslie at engineering at the planning department. And then we also have our legislative representatives as well, which is awesome because that can give us insight onto what, you know, the county and everything like that is doing. So speaking of the county, there are some things that we are working on. So going with climate smart communities, there is a bunch of points that you can get for doing a greenhouse gas inventory. So that is the big, large goal that you can get a bunch of points for. Under that, there are multiple steps that you have to do in order to gather data and everything like that. So what we are working on, number one step, is doing a fleet inventory. And so that is all of county fleet vehicles, four-wheeled ones. We're hoping we don't have to do three-wheeled or, you know, the big trucks and stuff, but that's for later. We did just have a meeting where we will be sending out a basically Excel sheets for each of the departments in the county to fill out to give us information about the vehicles that their county uses or that their department uses, just to gather as much information as we can. We also talked to Greg Kilmer over at BMT. I think it's Binghamton Metropolitan. So he is the guy that does all the buses for Broome County and Binghamton, and they are actually almost fully EV, or they will be EV soon. All of their buses, we got a bunch of money, so we're all getting all new buses soon. So all of those will be electric vehicles, which is awesome. And he gave us a lot of good insight because he used to work at Cornell University, and so he did their fleet inventory there. So that's the update. We're gathering information for that. The county is also looking to do municipal trainings like we do every year. So we're gathering those. Some of them are from NYSERDA, talking about battery storage and comprehensive plans and such. But Diane said that maybe some of our group would be interested in joining those. And once we have that set list and dates and times, I'll send it out to everybody. So you're welcome to join those just for a little more brain engagement, learning, continued learning. Then we also have, I sent it out, I think, to everybody. The New York State Climate Action Plan draft was out for public comment. So the comment period is from now until May 1st. I know in the past that the EMC has compiled comments. So I think it is I think it is BC Transit. I'm so new that I'm still trying to learn. Sorry, George. All of the, yeah, they're getting, in a couple of years, we have been awarded EV buses. Yeah, it was a lot of money, but it was amazing that we were awarded that. I don't know all of the specifics on it. It'll probably come out and be a big old thing. But yeah, so that's really, really awesome. They're working on getting the charging stations, because those are also expensive, and everything like that. But yeah, so that's an awesome thing. And he's a really good contact for us. Maybe we could have him come and talk to us.
So-
That could be another knowledge builder for us, possibly.
Is that Greg? Is that Greg Kilmer?
Greg Kilmer, yeah.
We had him, I want to say in September or October. He was
Oh, okay.
he was riveting.
Yeah.
He's really
He's so
on top of
smart.
his game. Yeah, so I'm sure he would come back if we tell him how many new members we have. I'm sure.
Yeah.
If I could
Go ahead,
make a quick
Christine.
comment, I think it'd be a good idea, like we're recording our meeting now, to just make that a habit of always recording them, especially the knowledge builders.
Oh yeah,
We
absolutely.
could do that moving forward.
Yeah, and then we can always post them on the website or Facebook. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So if anyone wants to make comments on the climate action plan, it is riveting. I've read all 350 pages of it. Just kidding, I did not do that. But I did go through it to try to find some good opportunities for municipalities, seeing if there's any new grant programs or funding opportunities that we might be able to use for climate smart communities stuff or anything like that. And then what else is on my list? There is a SUNY ESF energy symposium. I'm a Stumpy alumni, so I will always promote SUNY ESF. But Beth told me that she used to go to it all the time. Cinder. And it is available. It does cost money, but it is in person. And they usually get really great presenters there. So if anyone wants to go, I can put it in the chat, or I can email the thing that Beth sent me. It's from 8 to 2 on April 8th. So if anyone wants to go, it does cost money. Unfortunately, we can't sponsor anybody to go. I can't even get sponsored to go. So, well, whatever. And I think that's it.
Hey, Valdi, did you have a question or a comment?
Yes, before you invite Greg Kilmer back again, I would encourage people to view a presentation. Actually, it was a talk. Where he was at was a place where he couldn't use a computer. He had to do it by phone, but he gave a talk from the top of his head, mostly, I would imagine, talking for an hour and then answering questions for over another half an hour at our Susquehanna group of Sierra Club meeting, which was just last week. And
Oh,
I'm
wow.
posting the link to it. We recorded it and it's available on YouTube. So here's the link.
Thank you. That's great.
So he's doing great work. They've got roughly 14 hybrid electric buses right now. And I think there's a few more that either are going to be added, and 6 fully electric battery powered buses are coming with the grant they got. They're expecting to get money finalized for at least a few more after that. And they are definitely working on electrifying their entire fleet with buses manufactured in Plattsburgh, New York by Nova Bus, and with battery and electric drive systems, management systems designed and manufactured right here in Endicott by BAE Systems.
Woo-hoo. That's great. Thanks, Valdi. That'll be wonderful. All right, Jillian, anything else? Thank you so much. That's all really helpful. So now, and I think George will probably do a more in-depth introduction, but Caitlin Davey is with us, and she's going to, I'm really excited about this, Caitlin.
I just wanted to ask Gillian, I saw the membership list, and at one time the county had about 5 CACs. And I'm just wondering what the statuses are of them. Are they dormant? Are they gone, or?
That is a good question. I'm not sure. As of what the other rosters that I looked at in the past only had two. One was Fenton and one was Vestal. But if we are looking to gather more people, I would absolutely, reach out
Yeah,
to.
like Binghamton used to have one, Vestal. Yeah, there was a good number of them at one point.
Okay.
Vestal is not dead yet.
That's
I
it.
represent Vestal.
Vestal's still here. Adam's still here.
And I
Yeah,
think
although
Ian and I-
Vestal as a town and a school district is underperforming rather severely, and someday I'd like to talk about that and figure out if we can have a
Interesting.
strategy to bring this very wealthy but underperforming place into the 20th century with the energy and climate stuff.
Hey, we are going to transit. We are going to have to transition, but that's a really good point, Chris. And I apologize for not recognizing you had your hand up.
No
and it
worries.
did-
Sorry. I also saw in the chat, sorry, Megan, I didn't answer your question. I don't believe Broome County has done a full greenhouse gas inventory before. Not that I know of. They might have done like building audits, but nothing of this scale before.
Yeah, good question. Good question. So, so with that, again, Caitlin Davey is going to outbrief the survey that the Zero Waste team worked with Binghamton University on. I'll turn it over to George, and George, you can probably introduce Caitlin with more depth than I can. Chris, do you just want to remind folks kind of what we were doing with this?
Yeah, sure. So we have the Zero Waste Committee under the EMC, and we're focusing on a number of things, basically trying to move, the big picture is moving from waste management to resource management. And within that framework, there's a couple of things that we're really focusing on. One is to get organics out of landfill. It's a growing effort, and that's actually one of the things that the survey really zeroes in on, pun very much intended. But then also the other big thing is a concept called EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, in which there's movement on that score too. But those are our two focus areas in the bigger space of resource management and zero waste. So I think that's enough.
Yeah, thanks. Over to you, George. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, and then just by way of brief introduction, then the EMC at the I wasn't on it at the time, came to us and asked about a survey. And I don't remember actually how we were connected, but doesn't matter. Chris came to class and talked. We had two classes that conducted the survey, and I'm going to let Caitlin talk about how we did that. And in the end, we ended up with 4 separate reports done by the students. Caitlin's group was the one that did the best job, and also redid this, redid pieces of it with, after my comments upon my request. And so it's a start, and I'm happy to chat with where we might go after she presents. So let me turn. Caitlin Davey is in her, as she mentioned, is in her now her 2nd semester as a double degree student in our Sustainable Communities program, which is a master's degree, and our Masters of Public Administration program. It'll take her 3 years to get through the program. And Caitlin, with that, she's going to need to be able to share her slides, and I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, George. Yep, so I have a presentation I'm ready to share. I think I need co-host permission, is that right?
I
You
believe
should
so.
be able to. Do you not
Okay.
have the share screen at the bottom?
Oh, now I do, yep, okay, there it is. And here. Okay, am I sharing? Let's see. Close some of these. Okay. Right, so as George said, I believe it was the questions were formulated in conjunction with the with the EMC, and with those questions in hand, students went out into the community to various locations around Broome County to kind of take the pulse on how people felt about a countywide composting program, as well as asking questions about household waste management habits and general environmental knowledge. So these first few slides show where our survey is, where it came in with where the demographics are relative to the rest of Broome County as sourced from the most recent census. So you can see that the city of Binghamton is very overrepresented, and Deposit is a bit overrepresented as well, mainly because we went to events in those locations. The rest of the locations are more or less represented or somewhat underrepresented. And as for age, the audience that we convenience sampled definitely skewed younger, so probably lots of college age students, which might have changed some of the other metrics as well. The senior citizens are very underrepresented here. So we have males are underrepresented as well, meaning females are overrepresented. The racial breakdown is pretty much on par with the actual county demographics. And the education levels definitely skew towards the more highly educated. Also, I can put a link to this presentation I'm doing now will be just about the composting questions, but the full report also talks about the recycling habits and other things that might be of interest to the council. So when I'm done sharing my screen, I can put a link to that in the comments for people to reference if they don't already have it. So in terms of household size, we have the single families are less represented, and it might be because the younger audience, the younger people have dorms, maybe made that a little bit different. Single families are, and the type of home is pretty representative, and we're going to be using the term home tenure a lot in this presentation, which references whether or not somebody owns their home or rents their home or apartment. So we have rentals are overrepresented in this survey, but overall it was a pretty good cross section. So we first asked folks if they compost at least some yard waste, and implying that at least some yard waste plus maybe other household waste. So hopefully people read it as such. The majority of people do not compost anything, and see that here. So my group, we took this home tenure approach for all of the questions. So we broke this down by rental or ownership, and we can only assume that other might refer to a dorm situation or living with parents or transient populations or maybe assisted living. There was not a fill in the blank there. So it's predominantly homeowners that do compost, with renters not composting nearly as much. And in the comments section, we had many people say that the reason that they did not compost is because they were renters, because they either didn't have access, they didn't either have any space or they didn't have permission to use the space. So other reasons that people didn't compost, the main reasons, aside from not having space, would just be like not knowing enough. So I think that a strategy that addresses the space concerns, because it also doesn't take a whole lot of space to compost, especially if you're using one of those prefabricated barrels. So addressing maybe through CCE, addressing the knowledge base, and really promoting the fact that the county already has these units for sale that people can use could be really make a dent in how many people do compost. So other reasons didn't factor in as quite as much, but you can see the breakdown here again by rental or ownership, where renters don't have enough space, homeowners, they just don't have as much knowledge about it. And we asked people how they currently dispose of their food scraps. Most people just throw it in the garbage, and almost a quarter do compost at least a little bit at home. So we broke that down by location. I pulled the sample sizes for like the top 3 locations that were represented, mainly city of Binghamton. You can see 272, followed by Vestal and Endicott, We did include the other locations just to be equitable and fully transparent about that, but the sample sizes are all less than 20. So I don't know how much stock we want to put in those numbers, but it's really interesting to think about, like we have these average numbers, but when we break it down by either home tenure or by location, things can really vary quite a bit. So if Broome County does start a food scrap recycling program, what would make it better for you? The overwhelming preference would be for home bin or for neighborhood location, and maybe curbside pickup as well. We did ask people to check all that applies, so take that into consideration as well. And when we broke it down by housing tenure, again, the renters prefer a neighborhood location because they might not have as much access to space. Homeowners prefer a home bin. But really focusing on the neighborhood bin location, the home bin and curbside pickup would be where you want to focus your attention. And we broke that down again by location, and it varies pretty widely, but again, remember those sample sizes. So some places that have maybe more affluent communities, maybe more home ownership, maybe more space around them prefer the home pickup, and then others might prefer a neighborhood location. It was really interesting to see that like really nobody was interested in like a central city location. And there was talk about like, it was curbside for a cost. So a lot of people were saying, oh, we want curbside, but we don't want to pay for it. So, but of course somebody has to pay for it. We asked people, finally, would you be willing to separate your food scraps? And most people are happy to do so, including the people who said maybe, and you have a goodly percentage of people who would separate those food scraps, less so for the people who are willing to store them. And even speaking with George about like our own waste management solutions, like how it can really cause friction in a household when you're trying to figure out how to store those scraps. So overwhelmingly, 91% of people are very, very enthusiastic about having access to a program of some sort. And the positive comments were all talking about how they appreciate that it's less strain on the landfill, how they want to do something good for the earth, it's the right thing to do, and so on and so forth. I wanted to also include the less positive comments and concerns, because people did feel like by making these comments on the survey that their feedback would make it to the county in some way. So these are the reasons that people were not so warm on the idea. Take it with a grain of salt, I suppose, but wanted to get those to you. And so finally, reiterating some of the suggestions I mentioned earlier, our group was interested in certainly the equity of people having access to the compost solution in their rental units. So we wanted to get landlords involved and kind of get them to have some amount of buy-in, whether they're willing to set that up for their tenants or overtly encourage their tenants to do that for the home composting bit. But certainly if there was a neighborhood drop-off location, then maybe the landlords don't have to be as involved. I suspect that whatever the council comes up with as a solution is going to be a multi-pronged approach. So George and I feel that maybe a next step would be focus groups to get people really talking about the user experience of their current solutions and how having different options might affect their household, as well as potentially running some pilot programs in different locations. One that we included in our report, a solution that Yes Magazine mentioned as being used in Philadelphia, I think. Private citizens could get a license to go around and pick up people's compost and then take it to a central location. So that might be a good solution for some of the outlying areas. But I wanted to not rush through that totally fast, but have time for some questions. So please hit me up. I'm going to put that link to the rest of the report in here for your reference. And now I will stop sharing. Let's see. Great, thanks. Can I address any questions? Do you want me to elaborate on any of those things or discuss any of our other findings which have to do with recycling or whatnot? I didn't know if George, if you wanted to add any of your own input before we run out of time.
No, I think you did a great job, Caitlin. Thanks. The report that I sent to Diane, and I presume we'll get around as well as through the link that Caitlin sent, has the full survey in it and the breakdowns that Caitlin's group did. We have all the breakdowns that other groups did, and we obviously have the raw data. So if anyone is interested in interrogating a question across tabulation somehow, we can take care of that pretty easily. I mean, the only thing, I mean, this actually opened up a lot of doors, a lot of interesting ideas, and it challenged some of my understandings. I did not think people would be so into the home bins. I do wonder, and this is a caution you always take when you do these surveys. You have to get people's understandings and people's a buy-in eventually, because it doesn't work without it. And certainly starting from what they want is a good place. But I mean, you also have to remember people understand composting as bins, and they don't necessarily understand it as a program where people drive around and pick things up, which may or may not be environmentally feasible. But you know, they don't necessarily imagine or have not thought much of these other ideas. So I'm not saying that that the council should go with what the number one thing people said, but just take it as more input. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was going to be one of my follow-up questions with the low feeling about centralized and composting, and I'm just wondering if you had a sense that people were thinking, you know, when you put it a neighborhood collection, that they had in mind maybe that everybody had to take their compost to a centralized location versus how people in the business think of it more as a centralized composting facility that would be incorporated in the collection along with the trash and the recyclables. I'm just curious if you had any sense of people's understanding of that.
No, and that's one of the problems with the closed-end survey. Sorry, Caitlin.
I was going to say about the same. I was not on the ground actually administering these surveys, but my sense from talking with my classmates who did, as well as just a quick read of the survey, is that the students who were administering them, they were not elaborating or answering questions or really making sure that people understood. It was just kind of a one-line central location, neighborhood location, and so on. So I would just my quick read on that was sort of assuming that even if there was a curbside collection that would be going somewhere, and presumably that central location, people could maybe still bring their waste there as they would for other recycling or whatnot. But I don't, the survey itself is in that overall report, so you can get a sense of, you know, what your first impression of that would be. But I don't think that anyone taking it like really spent a lot of time thinking about any of this stuff. So this is kind of a quick read, and it was very cool to see a lot of the relationships between those things, but central location did not register, did not excite anybody.
And that very well could be. I mean, we also have to think, although I'd have to go back and look now. I mean, I would have thought it would have been bigger in rural areas where people might be used to doing that, and that it was the skew of the city that kept people from doing that. But I don't know. I mean, that's where you have to look at the numbers a little bit more. I think that I know that when I put neighborhood down, I was thinking that, and this is because Josh had suggested that we do this in Noma, where I do a lot of work at the community center. Gee, can we have a neighborhood location? I know that the gardens often have that. People bring their stuff. So that's what I was thinking. But your question and Caitlin's answer are perfect. We have no idea what people were thinking.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I live in a rural area, and when we talk about recycling drop-offs, the landfill happens to be the most convenient place for me. And I can't remember, we used to have a number of drop-off points around the county. I'm not sure where we are at this point, but so even with recycling, and you talk about drop-offs, people don't want to go to one central place to drop off their recycling. It's always good to have a number of them around, more like a neighborhood drop-off.
I think a lot of it is the storage issue too. People might store their recycling for a week or two or more, but nobody really wants to keep their food scraps around very long. So convenience matters.
All right, any other thoughts or questions? Okay, so Caitlin, thank you so much. Please thank your teammates as well. This is just a wonderful thing. I know you've given us an overview. I think the team will be digging into the report. And George, thank you so much for your partnership, and Chris for your leadership. And for
I wanna
everybody.
add my thanks as well. They
Yeah.
did a phenomenal job. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me practice my public speaking skills.
well, you very nicely delivered, very nicely delivered. And I do want to thank Deb and Josh and anyone else on that's here from the team. But Deb and Josh especially have been really helpful in this process, along with Jessica, who leads our recycling for Broome County too. So really good to have you here. Josh, I'll be interested in your reactions after you get some time to digest, and really interested in what you think. So, all right, with that, we're just a couple minutes before the end. Adam or anybody else have anything that they want to share with the team before we depart for the evening? I see
Ellie,
Ellie.
did you wanna? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so Nest HeatSmart is launching its next webinar series. And so our first one's happening February 10th. I can share the dates. Actually, Adam, would you please, or somebody who has the list, go ahead and copy paste that into the chat. But I'll just say a quick thing about it. Our thing happening on
I
February.
am driving, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll just pull up the list really quick. I want to be brief, but our first one is going to be a case study for somebody who got insulation and an air source heat pump in their home. And so we're going to I know, exciting. We're going to go through her process. The installer partners will be there. So that's going to be really cool. But then later on, we actually have two that are focused on the first one's more like renter, or it could be anybody who wants to get some home efficiency stuff in their home without doing construction things. So kind of the quick fixes and tricks to save energy and keep that in your home. And then the second one is a clean energy careers day, which we're really excited about. We're kind of obviously targeting that more at students, but also it could be a workforce thing of opportunities for people who want to go into clean energy. So I'll send that list out. Our interns did just finish making all the flyers for it. So I'll have links to all of them in just a couple days, probably before the end of the week. Oh, tomorrow's Friday, either before the end of the week or very early next week. So I can send that out as well. If you have people who are interested, if we want to promote that, we're really trying to get webinar attendance up. So any questions about that? Adam,
Just add one thing. Yeah, just these webinars and other information can always be found at our website at nynest.org.
It's usually not up there yet, but it will be. And definitely our Facebook as well is a good place to find that. So when I send out the list and the links, I'll also include a link to our pages.
Yeah, Ellie, do you want to make sure you send that to me? Because I can always add it to the EMC webpage on the county's page.
That would be
and I'm sure Christine can do Facebook posts on it as well.
Okay, that would
I
be
can do
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, I know the Sierra Club also has a calendar.
There you go.
All right, and I will just give a quick plug. The EMC is on Facebook, and Christine does a nice job of keeping postings up for us. So please, if you're on Facebook, visit our page and like us and all those kinds of things. All right. If there's nothing else, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Diane.
No, it's fine.
Just so I'm still getting permissions from IT. They are very slow. So that's why I wasn't able to host this. From now on, hopefully once IT gives me permissions to have more than 40 minutes with 3 people, I will be using my link, and I'll either send it out to everybody. I mean, obviously I'll put it in the calendar and everything, but sorry for any confusion. We're still definitely learning ins and outs of changing over of people and such like that, but make sure you look for that new link. I just wanted to say that for the next meeting.
Thanks, Jillian. And Valdi, did you have something before we close?
Yes, just quickly, I'm sorry, for some reason, I couldn't find the Zoom link, so I missed the first roughly 10, 12 minutes of this meeting. So I don't know what was said about the draft scoping plan. I know it was mentioned briefly. I just want to reiterate, in case it wasn't mentioned, how important this is, that the public is notified about the criticality of this, because for once, people in New York State, in multiple levels of government, in coordination with NYSERDA, ISO, who operates the grid, utilities that do the distribution of electricity, they're asking for public input on this key planning document, which I have so far found inadequate. And I participated in a meeting earlier today with people that are on the ISO side of things and the utility side of things, and how they are doing their planning, but they even mentioned that there's a vacuum. They didn't really get into specifics. I think they're afraid to admit that they understand there's not enough coordination, but there really isn't enough coordination between the different entities that are planning new renewable energy facilities, including people putting it on their homes, especially the bigger locations, the community shared solar farms that are utility scale, the wind farms, the energy storage, which is going to have to be huge, as well as the balancing all of this to meet existing demand and growing the capacity of the grid by a factor of 2, which needs to happen to electrify New York State's economy. So this is a crucial moment. I don't know how many people really understand the weaknesses and the difficulty of trying to do this all at the same time by all these different entities, public and private, and then to satisfy consumers as well. So anyway, I just wanted to mention this. Sorry, I'm taking so much time.
No, I appreciate it, Valdi, and you always speak so eloquently to it. So I'm glad you did it. I will just, as we close here, I'll say exciting time, right? We've got the scoping plan for the CLCPA out. We have the Ithaca Green New Deal that many of us are getting kind of pulled into because it's becoming kind of a regional thing, especially from a job standpoint. We have new businesses that are moving into the southern tier, many of them into the Huron campus down in Endicott. We have the New York State Build Back Better plan. We have still some possibility of some version of the Build Back Better plan at the federal level being passed, which has a lot of environmental implications for us. And we have elements of the American Rescue Plan that was passed earlier this last year that has elements around environmental concerns as well. So just a tremendous amount of funding and potential funding that's out there for environmental project and for environmental progress. Probably nothing like we've seen since the 70s. So I'm really optimistic, and I hope you are too. And Valdi brings up a good point. The scoping plan is 800 pages, but 500 pages of it are the, is the appendices. So when you look at it that way, 300 pages sounds better. So anyway, with all that, good night, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you again next month. And if you're on Teams, and by the way, we're always looking for people on Teams, reach out to me and I can help you get on one if you're interested. If you're on Teams, you'll probably see each other sooner than that. So have a nice night.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Adam and Chris, did I not get to you? Are your hands up? No, I think that was old. Okay.
Yeah,
Jillian,
I think Adam had to leave.
yeah,
That's
Jillian
pretty much it.
yeah, Jillian and Christine, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Valdi's giving us the thumbs up.
Bye.
All right, good night, everyone. Bill.